You're listening to the Play Therapy Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks, your source for centered and focused play therapy coaching.
Hi, I'm Dr. Brenna Hicks, and this is the Play Therapy Podcast. In today's episode, I am going to move into another skill in the playroom. Last session, or episode rather, we talked through the reflective responses. And so that included reflecting feelings, reflecting content, and tracking behavior. And I didn't spell this out a whole lot last time, but one of the things that I have done is I have broken down the four main skills into what I call the four pillars. And so this is the second of the four pillars. So reflecting feelings / reflective responding is the first. And then choice giving is the second. And if you go through Landreth and Bratton's CPRT training, child-parent relationship training, you will notice that they order this differently. They have reflecting feeling as the first skill and limit setting as the second, and then choice giving as the third. I actually think that that's counterintuitive, and I have reordered this for the sake of ease of teaching it, in my opinion, because you need reflecting feelings and choice giving, both skills, to be able to use the limit setting skill. So in my mind, I think choice giving is a precursor to knowing how to limit set well. So if you're familiar with Landreth's model and that order, this will be a little different. But choice giving comes next in my mind because it's required to be able to do limit setting. And I want to give you some tips, some framework to actually use the choice giving skill in a phrase, and then some examples of when you would use it and why and things like that. So this is going to be a fun episode. I'm excited. When we're in the playroom with children, we have obviously several goals in mind, and that seems very directive and not child-led. So let me clarify what I mean. We obviously have therapeutic goals for a child in the back of our minds because we understand the process. So what I mean is we don't meet with parents and then write up a set of therapeutic goals based on what the parents have told us. You know, my child is aggressive, so then as the therapist, our goal does not become to reduce aggression in the child. However, we understand by using child-centered non-directive skills what outcomes will emerge. So in other words, our goals are, as the child thematically plays through power and control, they will regulate more effectively and become less aggressive. So it's not a goal that we are setting, it's a goal therapeutically that undergirds the entire work that we do with the child. So when we are using choices in the playroom, there are goals and intentions behind that. And there are several types of choice giving opportunities. And so we'll briefly touch on that, but I want the bulk of this just to be the process and the framework and how to use it, practically speaking, in sessions. So the main purpose of choice giving is to provide kids with a measure of power and control. So let's tease that apart for a second. When children are under the age of 15, 16, meaning they have permits, licenses, they're in high school, more independence, more freedom, they can drive, etc. Under that age, children are basically directed almost every moment of their life. So they're told when, what, why, how, all of it, all day long. They have very little autonomy. They have very little power and control. So try putting yourself in their shoes and try to imagine what it's like to have no independence, no freedom, no ability to make decisions, and you just have to comply with directives all day, every day. It's maddening, and it's understandable why children would have an issue with that, because who wants to be told what to do all the time? So the goal of choice giving is to return some power and some control back to the child. And the secondary piece of choice giving is empowerment. Because not only do you want to let them feel that they have a valid measure of power and control, but you also want them to feel empowered, and it allows them to problem solve and make decisions and those types of things. So it's actually very deeply layered. So choice giving on the surface seems very quick and easy. We just give choices. But there's a lot under the surface that if we don't really understand, I think we miss opportunities to see the value and the depth of this skill. When we are talking through giving choices, there is a very specific framework. So you want to make sure that you are using very specific and intentional wording and phrases, because it loses its efficacy if we change how we phrase it. So the basic framework is you can choose A or you can choose B. Okay, so let me pause there. It is not the same thing to say you can do this, you can do that. Do you want this? Do you want that? Any way that we change the wording there, it is no longer a choice. So it's very important to be aware that we're saying you can choose option A or you can choose option B. So for example, when a child comes in for the first session in the playroom, we are very intentional about providing choices straight out of the gate, because a child's already a little bit uncomfortable, often, not always. Some kids come back as if they've known you forever and they're super excited and it doesn't matter at all. But some kids are reserved and timid and shy and uncomfortable and awkward and all of those other adjectives. So right from the start, we say, welcome to the playroom. You can choose to sit on this chair or you can choose to sit on this stool while I share a couple things with you about the playroom. Which do you choose? Then when we move into our house tree person assessments, we say, you can choose what 4 pieces of paper you would like. I wonder which you choose. You can choose colored pencils, markers, or crayons to use for your drawings. Which do you choose? We are very purposeful and very intentional that as many choices as possible are given, especially week 1, because what does that communicate to the child? You have control, you have power, you have a voice, and I'm not telling you what to do, and I'm not insisting on anything. You get to decide in here. So our first week is really the only week that we have a little bit of directives. So we have to share confidentiality, obviously. We have to share that we take notes in session. We have to share that it's 50 minutes. We have to share that we'll go to snack before we meet mom and dad in the lobby. So there are a few things that we tell them week 1. And so we're a little bit in charge in those first few moments, even though the entire process is child-centered. And then we do one assessment throughout the entirety of our treatment, which is the house tree person kinetic family drawing. And since I'm sitting here thinking as I'm saying, many of you probably have no idea what I'm talking about, I promise I'll do an episode on that. So we'll get there. If you're going, what is house tree person? I promise I'll do an episode. I'm making a note right now. But there's a sense of, I have some things that I need to do with you right now, but this is still child-centered. This is still non-directive. So how do I make sure the child feels that I'm not just telling them what to do and setting expectations? You do that through choices because it's empowering and it returns some control to them in an otherwise very, I don't feel like I have any control situation. So you can choose A or you can choose B. That is your most simple framework. Now, there are going to be extensions of choice giving that change that a little bit. For example, when we move into ultimate limit setting, which we haven't gotten there yet, we have to do regular limit setting first, then we'll move into ultimate limit setting. When we get there, it becomes a little bit more complicated of a choice pattern because you say the word choose 5 times instead of 2. But in its simplest form, you can choose A or you can choose B. And here's what the goal is. You want the child to have the opportunity to make decisions. You want them to know what it feels like to have choices. You want them to feel that they have some power and they don't therefore have to fight and power struggle all the time and fight for control because they're given measures of power and control consistently. It immediately reduces power struggling when a child is given choices consistently. And when you work with parents, when you help them implement skills at home, and when you help them understand the value of the child-centered model, help them understand how to give their children choices at home. Do you choose carrots or do you choose broccoli with dinner? Do you choose to wear your red shirt today or do you choose to wear your blue shirt today? Help them understand the value of providing choices at home consistently and frequently, because the child learns and internalizes, well, I don't always have power and control, but I'm given power and control quite a bit because I get to make decisions all the time. That was a bonus freebie. So let me get back. So when you're in the playroom and you're giving choices, you want them to have a sense of empowerment. You want them to have a sense of, I'm in control and I have some power, but they're practicing very important skills. They're practicing making decisions. They're practicing choosing, and therefore choosing and accepting the outcome of their choices as well. That's a very powerful lesson that is learned through the choice-giving process, because if a child chooses to sit in the stool and then really hates it or starts complaining about it or doesn't like that choice at all, there's an internalization of, I accept the consequence of my choice. Miss Brenna didn't force me to sit in this stool. I chose to sit in this stool. And therefore, when you move into limit setting and you're giving choices as part of limit setting, they also accept the consequences of their choices when it comes to complying with or breaking limits. So they are learning self-responsibility, they are learning self-control, and they are learning ownership over the decisions that they make and the outcomes that come with those decisions. So choice giving is a very, very important process when it comes to children learning and understanding the value of when they have power, what to do with that power, and what comes with that power. You know, with knowledge comes great responsibility. With power, I'm totally botching that quote. The point is, kids learn that they have to own the power that they have and the decisions that they make. So it's really important that they are given choices consistently. So in the playroom, when a child says, well, what are we going to play with? What do you want to do today? That's an opportunity to give a choice. In here, you get to choose what we do. You can choose to do anything you want. What color do you want to be when we play this game? Candyland, for example, the little gingerbread men, red, yellow, green, blue. What color do you want to be, Miss Brenna? You choose for you and for me. You get to choose what colors we are. How does this work? Oh, you're not sure how that works. So you can choose to use it in any way that you would like. Notice that you can choose is at the foundation of all of my responses, because I'm returning power and returning responsibility to the child. Now, in a you can choose A or you can choose B scenario, I already gave you some of those. What they use to color with, where they sit, what paper they use. There's all of these choices that are provided. For example, we always wash hands before and after each session, just to keep the playroom as clean as possible, the toys as clean as possible, etc. So we say you can choose to wash your hands in the hallway bathroom or you can choose to wash your hands in the playroom. All of our playrooms have sinks. So that's another choice that we offer. At the end of the session, we provide snacks. So we walk out to the snack table and we say, you can choose goldfish, you can choose crackers, you can choose a cookie, whatever snacks are available on that day. So as you can see, there's power in providing choices, and it does not work if we alter the phrase. So you can do anything you want in here is not the same as you can choose what happens in the playroom. Do you want red paper, green paper, or blue paper to draw on? Not the same thing as you choose which 4 pieces of paper to use. So we have to be very intentional about using choice giving the way that it is intended. And when we move into the ultimate limit setting, it becomes a much more complicated choice because you're offering a choice with a consequence, and then the question of what they choose. So I'll model that for you now and just know that we'll get to it. So in that scenario, it's if you choose to continue to throw the balls at me, you choose not to have balls in the playroom for the rest of our session today. If you choose to throw the balls at the wall instead, you choose to have the balls for the rest of the playtime today. Which do you choose? Okay, so I will unpack that further in a couple more episodes, but that's just so that you have an idea in your head of what that ultimate limit setting choice looks like. But until we get there, it's very simple to offer consistent choices in the playroom. Anytime a child is asking for direction, knowledge, understanding, for you to make a decision, those are all moments where you can say, you can choose this or you can choose this. You get to choose in here. You choose what you'd like for us to do. For example, yesterday, I had a little girl in with me and she was setting up a tea party. So I have 2 play phones in there, which by the way, that's really important in our toy episode. If you missed that one, please go back and listen to that. But you do need 2 cell phones in your playroom. One does not work because how can someone else answer your call if you only have one? So she always hands me my cell phone. She takes her cell phone and she calls me every single week. Very repetitive thematic play. So she calls me. I say, hello. She says, Miss Brenna, are you going to come over for our tea party? And I say, oh, I wonder if you'd like me to come. Yes. Okay, I'll be there. And we hang up. And then she sets up the entire tea party. So as she's setting up the tea party yesterday, she calls me again. So I answer and she says, what's your favorite color, Miss Brenna? Okay. So I'm going to assume that you all have been listening to these episodes enough that you know the effective way to respond in that scenario. So I will grant you the benefit of the doubt that you know exactly how to handle that. But that can be extremely tricky because when a child says, what's your favorite color? It's easy to just say green. That is actually my favorite color, by the way. So then you have this moment where are you truly being child-centered, non-directive if you tell them the answer that they're asking for? Because A, as we've talked about in earlier episodes, the question is not the question. There is always an emotion or a reason behind the question. So our job is to figure out what is driving the question, not listen to the question itself. Secondly, if we say green, then she then has a decision to make. Do I give Miss Brenna the green plate? Oh, I didn't tell you why she was asking. She wanted to give me the color plate that I wanted of the plate options. So we had red, yellow, green, blue. She was wondering what plate she should set up for me at the tea party. So then she's stuck because what if she wanted the green plate? And if I say green, then she has an internal crisis. Oh, shoot, do I give Miss Brenna the green plate even though I really wanted the green plate? But if I keep the green plate, is Miss Brenna going to feel bad because that's her favorite color? Do you see how all of a sudden it's no longer child-led? Because we put the child in their heads. They were emotionally in the moment setting up a tea party. And then that entire dialogue that just took place was all a cognitive process, and kids live in their hearts, not in their heads. We want the playroom to remain consistently an emotional place. So when we answer green to what's your favorite color, Miss Brenna, we are no longer being child-centered, non-directive. So it's kind of a trick question. So in that moment, my response is, you choose which color plate you have and you choose which color plate I have. Now, some of you, I'm sure, are screaming at me right now, yes, but some kids will not accept that. Some kids say, no, you have to tell me what your favorite color is. Yes, there are some kids who will not accept that kind of workaround answer. And in that scenario, you fall back on they're in charge in the playroom. So you say, you really want me to tell you what my favorite color is, but in here, you are in charge, so you get to make the decisions. And over time, they learn that there's no point in fighting it because you will not tell them answers like that. And it's usually the very power-hungry, fighting for control kids that demand that you give them an answer. And then in that scenario, you fall back on reflective responding. You really want me to tell you what color plate I would like, but it's up to you to choose because you're in charge. And you then move back into reflecting their feeling while still giving choices. So you can see how these 4 pillars, as I've labeled them, all work in tandem, because you can seamlessly flow from giving a choice to setting a limit to reflecting their feeling to encouraging. It just all flows together because they're all founded on the same principles. So I hope that gives you a better understanding of choice giving now. If you have questions or comments, or you want some clarification, something didn't feel clear, please shoot me an email, brenna@thekidcounselor.com. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you to all of you all over the world who have been reaching out to me. I've recently had someone from Australia. I've had someone from Ireland. I've had someone from Vancouver in Canada. It's been so amazing to connect with all of you. Thank you for reaching out and letting me know that this is a helpful podcast and that you're benefiting from it. Someone told me that they take me to work with them every morning on their drive. So it's been so exciting to hear how this is impacting us as clinicians and therapists and play therapists who want to be child-centered. So I'm super grateful for all of you that share these episodes with me each week and for spending time with me each week. Again, reach out. I'd love to hear from you. In the next episode, we'll move into limit setting, so you will see how reflecting feeling and choice giving go together there. Can't wait to talk soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Play Therapy Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks. For more episodes and resources, please go to www.playtherapypodcast.com.